a member of the board of the Maxwell Conservation Trust, and I'll address my first comments in that mode, and then second as the current president of the North and South Rivers Watershed Association. So in the first vein, we actually met with a number of the Board of Selectmen, and the seller of the property was with us, and when asked specifically if she had or her family had any interest in carving out any of the land for ball fields, she said no. It was the intent of her parents and of her family that that land would remain as open space. So there is no opportunity from the point of view of the seller. It's either that or perhaps it gets sold to a developer. But that question was asked and answered directly. We should also note, I think many of you were here earlier when we talked about the need to hire another person to help with all the additional properties that are being developed. This town's going to be looking at a significant amount of new housing being developed, and this could accommodate another 26 homes, which is an additional burden on this community, a slug of new people going into schools, need for water, sewer, etc. So we should bear that in mind. It's not just tax revenue, costs come with that as well. And then finally, from the point of view of the North and South Rivers Watershed Association, we support the preservation of this land. It sits right on the edge of the South Swamp, which is at the headwaters of our water supply. And a lot of the open space in this town brings that South Swamp and has been specifically acquired with that strategic point of view in mind. And for that, the North and South River Watershed specifically supports this purchase as an organization. Thank you.
Speaker at the center mic, please.
Gordon Price, 48 Manlock Road. Through you, Mr. Chairman, if Lisa could please give us some idea of where the two access points to this land would be, Lisa?
Chairman Fenton.
Thank you. So, Frank, could you step up here and help me out exactly where they are in relation to the road?
Gentleman to my left.
Frank Snow, the Scituate Conservation Commission and CPC member. They're both on Clapp Road. I don't know the exact street numbers, but coming from Grove Street, just about at the top of the hill, before you head down towards Booth Hill, there'd be access on the left. And then as you start down the hill, probably a few hundred yards down the street, there's a second access before you get to Booth Hill. Both of these would be going south of Clapp Road.
Okay. Dr. Price.
When I rose to speak, I initially was very much in favor of the purchase of this piece of land. After listening to Mr. Selectman Danhe's presentation, I wasn't sure. Now I'm sure. I think we should vote for this piece of land. I'm fortunate enough to live as an abutter to the Ellis property, and I see not only fox, deer, or coyotes, but an occasional human actually walking the trails on the Ellis property. And I think if we could have that ability to do that in the West End in this piece of property, I think it would be a phenomenal opportunity for the town. So I would urge this meeting tonight to vote for this proposal.
Gentleman to my right.
Yeah, Steve Bjorklund, 15 Captain Daniel Litchfield Lane. I'm actually in favor of purchasing this piece of land. I did serve on the CPC for a while, also on the Conservation Commission. But just to try and clarify a couple of things about this so that hopefully everybody can make the right vote the way that you want. You said that there were no additional costs that came with this, and I'm somewhat familiar with title work in the West End and property boundaries and things like that out there. Who is going to pay for the title research on this piece of property? Who is going to pay for the survey of the property before the town takes it?
I'm going to allow, Mr. Moderator, if you don't mind, Mr. Snow has been diligent about this piece of property and the work that's been done on it so far.
Mr. Snow to answer the question.
In the past, the Community Preservation has done the survey and the appraisal as part of the process in acquiring the land.
Yeah,
and we do that with administrative fees.
Yeah, and I understand that most of the stuff that's been purchased on the north side of Thomas Clapp Road up in the Bates Lane area, most all those parcels were located within stone walls, and they were pretty easy to do a perimeter survey on, and the titles were reasonably clear on those properties. And I'm just sure if I'm just want to be sure that this piece, if they purchase it, that the town does not get socked with a huge fee to actually clear the title. So if they're going to pay $780,000, knowing titles in the area, you could spend tens of thousands of dollars to actually clear the title. But again, I'm still in favor of buying the piece. It's a beautiful piece of land. It is developable. The comment was made tonight that it's all been perked. Well, if there's 26 lots, you need 78 holes to perk. My guess is they probably dug a couple holes out there and might have had some success, but that's not to say that you can't go dig more holes and get more perks to go, but it's probably not all buildable, but it's certainly, in my opinion, worth the price to try to preserve that piece of property. But just, I want everyone to know there could be additional costs before the town actually purchases it. I just want to know if the family would pick up some of that cost.
Can I speak to that?
I was going to recognize Chairman Fenton, but if she wishes to...
Let me have a word real quick, Frank, if you don't mind. If you read the article, the amount of money is capped at the 784, so it's approximately $20,000 per acre, but any other legal costs, survey costs, any of those costs entailed would fall within that, and it would lower the per acre price, so we would not be paying additional money for surveys and boundary lines.
Okay, then I would recommend the town buy the piece.
Lady at the center, Michael.
Laurie Withrow, 62 Ann Vinyl Road.
Ma'am.
I wrote my notes before this discussion, so I apologize if I repeat anything that was just said. I have never spoken up about CPC to date. However, this purchase has had me very intrigued for the past day or two as I have looked into it. I now feel that many CPC purchases are made under the radar of most of our townspeople, and this needs to stop. The CPC is our taxpayers' money. 3% of all of our taxpayer money. Yes, we get money from the state added to this fund, but that is still a lot of money of ours. The town of Scituate has an awful lot of needs right now. We have already purchased 420 acres in the West End for over $4 million. When is enough enough? $784,000 is way too much money to spend to be given restrictions by the owners. If they are donating the space to us, then maybe I would understand a little more. But they want to sell it to us and give us restrictions. We already have plenty of walking trails in the West End that I don't hear anyone say they are using. We are desperately in need of fields, ways to keep our children busy. The thought of more trails in the woods for our teenagers to hang in just makes me cringe. A senior center is way overdue, yet we spend our CPC money with only 350 people in this room. It just doesn't seem right that the owners want to sell us this property, yet it can still be used for a tree farm for firewood. I read that in the CPC minutes from January that I'd like some clarification on. Who is going to profit from the firewood if we buy it as a town? We should not be negotiating deals with specific stipulations ever. Community preservation projects need to be able to adapt to varied uses that qualify for preservation, meaning anything other than being developed. We cannot set a precedent that we will buy property for sentimental family reasons. I am all for protecting our water supply, even my brown water supply. However, I am sure there is a way to protect this with a mixed-use space. When our advisory board and board of selectmen are divided, as much as it is, then the answer needs to be no.
Gentleman to my left.
Frank Snow, Scituate Conservation Commission, and a CPC member.
Sir.
For those, first off, the Damon piece, the Damon family, we feel, has offered the property at substantially less than it could be sold on the open market. The process Mr. Bjorklund spoke about, we'll have to have the property appraised, it'll be surveyed, part of the survey is already completed. We'll go through a whole process to make sure that the town has gotten good value. This particular parcel, the Maxwell Trust has worked with their family for years. The family came to an agreement to sell this, again, at what we feel is a very reasonable price compared to what they could sell it for if it were to be developed, and that's why we went for it. I'm a little disappointed that somehow people feel that this is done behind closed doors or without transparency. We've had lots of open meetings. We've been in front of the selectmen, we've been in front of the advisory committee, we've had our own meetings. This has been well vetted, and it's disappointing that some folks would feel that somehow this is an exclusive decision. For those of you that think that we have acquired enough open space, maybe I should just list a few of the developments that have gone on since CPC has started. And these are the ones that come to mind, and maybe I've dropped a few. Tilden Farms, Evangeline Drive, Deer Commons, Walnut Tree Hill, off of Hadley Road near the Egypt Beach parking lot, the Northerly Estates off of Cornet Stetson, Colby's Run, the Steveman's Farm off of Elm, off of Gannett Road is the Jones Stone property, Riverways, the Lincoln property off of Gannett near North Scituate, a small subdivision off Bulrush Farm, another one off of Van Vinyl Road. Up-and-coming projects are also the Goulston property, the Studley Farm off of Clapp Road, another project off of Summer Street, the Hennessy property, another project off of Whittier Drive. There's also multiple 40B projects, which the Damon property could be if it went on the open market, including Whitcomb Pines, the Stockbridge Road project at Greenfield, Herringbrook Meadows may come back to life, and Walden Woods, to name a few. I didn't count up all the acreage on that, but I can assure you that it's well over the 300 some odd acres that we've acquired with CPC funds. We're not keeping status quo with that at all. Thank you.
Now, I don't know who's up next, whether it's Mr. Limbacher or, no? Gracious Mr. Limbacher. Go ahead, ma'am.
Lunchloss, 50 Manlot Road. Just speaking in support of this motion, I think $20,000 an acre is a very good price for developable land. There's many studies that show that costs to communities for residential development are far in excess of the cost that you will save by having open space. So I think it'll be a savings to our community. The fact that, that this land is adjacent to existing open space is going to provide much more value in terms of habitat, because we'll have that large contiguous area, which is essential for wildlife. And our open space plan recommends preservation of this land, so I think it's a wise move. That's it.
Anybody else over on that left mic? No?
I'm at the left mic.
Well, yeah, I thought so. Sir.
Bill Limbacher, Chairman, Planning Board, also a member of CPC. The Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend the purchase of this piece of property. I think for all the reasons that Lisa and Frank and the other people very well articulated. In our mind, it came down to a situation where you were looking at a piece of land that was conservation, would never be built on, as opposed to coming back up with the potential development and
My name is Bob McHugh. I live at 15 Wheeler Park Drive. I've been an appraiser. I've been one of the first appraisers licenses in the state of Massachusetts. I'm 77 years old. I've lived in Scituate all these years. I'm the past president of the Plymouth County Board of Realtor Multiple Listing Service. I've had a real estate company, and I am the chief loss verifier, appraiser for the Small Business Administration for all of New England and a few other states. I know this land very, very well. I think that I've seen the land up there purchased by the town that is underwater, and this land is underwater. And I don't think that the town should pay good money for it when it's just a disgrace that we're even entertaining this idea. I thank you very much, sir.
We've got to go. Gentleman to my right.
Hi, my name's Ernie Foster. I live at 109 Clap Road. The gentleman just left is incorrect. I live next to that property. It is not underwater. I will tell you that I have a couple questions, and the first question comes, I've only been to a few town meetings, but it's rare that both the Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Board disagree on something. So I would like to know, of both boards, how many people have actually want this ballpark thought process. If you could show me your hands who are in favor for the ballpark or this active use, I'd like to know who those people are. Because it sounds like it's a strong arm tactic against a family who has been on that land for 13 generations. So 27 years ago when I moved to the West End from Wisconsin, the Damon family took us for walks back there. They viewed that as their world's end, their Norse reservation. I was taught to respect my elders. I think you guys should listen to the family and understand what that land meant for them. Thank you.
Lady at the center mic.
Yes, Tracy Kelly, 61 Collier Road. I have a quick question, a general question about CPC money. Of the monies that are generated by our 3% tax every year, are there specific pockets that they have to go to?
Ms. Fenton.
Yes, thank you. So since 2002, we've collected a 3% surcharge on property taxes, and that's been matched by the state for a few years, actually for about the first 5 or 6, at 100% match. That match has gone down a little bit each year based on new communities coming into the coalition, and then of course that money available is dispersed amongst more towns. We were at about 25% this past year, and because of those dwindling funds that are now being amortized over more towns, they have recently voted on new legislation for an additional $25 million out of surplus funds each year. So we're back up to, we doubled what we had last year, this year, with approximately $700,000 in matching funds. So to answer your questions, yes, there are 3 categories of historical, open space, and community housing that we put the money into. Plus we have a general fund and we have an administrative fund. Recreation projects are funded out of our general fund. Open space goes out of open space reserves. Same with historic and affordable housing. If we have a project that goes beyond what we have in those reserves, we pull it out of the general fund. We have never spent down our general fund, and we've never bonded a project. We keep a very healthy amount in our general fund and in our reserves, such that when there is a time that a very important project to the community comes up, we have the availability to fund it.
All right, so my question, though, is do you have to put a specific percentage of the monies that come to the CPC to open space or to...
Yes, each year, which is what our first 4 articles are, first 4 items in our article, is 10% goes into each category, the three categories I described,
right, so
then
the remaining,
5%.
So the remaining 60% or whatever is in the general fund?
Correct.
Okay. I would like to just ask the CPC why there isn't, where's there affordable housing on this?
It is here, and that is a very good question.
You know, I mean, I have really mixed emotions about the piece of property that everyone's talking about. I would really like to see some affordable housing come to this town.
We would love your help.
Well, no, but you know what? I just think if 10% went to open space, why the rest of the 60 can't be put to affordable housing where people...
We right now have a very healthy reserve in our affordable housing reserve. We've also funded our affordable housing trust with $1.4 million.
I know, but I'm just saying...
Okay, let's try to bring the discussion back to the...
That's my point.
Ma'am?
Well, my
Ma'am?
point, but yes.
Ma'am, we're going to bring the discussion back to this particular property.
Okay, then I'm not in favor of it.
Okay. Gentleman to my left.
I just want to remind the community. Oh, Scott Greenbaum, 40 Damon Road.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Approximately 3 or 4 years ago, there was an article at a town meeting to eliminate CPC or bring it down to 1%. That resoundingly lost. So this town does value this. I also want to get a clarification. If I understand correctly, that if we don't buy this property, that will have absolutely no effect on our property tax rates. Is that correct?
Madam Chairman.
Excuse me, if we don't buy the property, it will have no effect on our tax rate?
That's right. The money has already been collected from our taxes.
Yes.
And it will, and so future allocations, future money collected, because it seemed like the woman that made the statement earlier may not have understood the entire thing, that even though we have needs that are outside of this, right now, if we do or don't buy this property, this money cannot and will not be allocated to handle any of the other needs that we have discussed.
That's correct, and we do have very stringent rules on what we can fund with CPA funds.
All right. I do support this. I support the family if they wanted it to open space. You know, somebody's giving us a bargain, probably a $3 million bargain, because it's probably would go close to $4 million. And, you know, we should respect the family and we should purchase it because it's a very reasonable price to keep a good heritage. 13 generations goes back close to the beginning of when this town was founded, and there isn't anything more historical than that. Thank you.
Lady at the center mic.
Ann Burbine, 10 Pennycrest Road. I move the question.
Motion to move the question is a motion to terminate debate is not debatable. It requires a 2/3 vote. If you wish to stop debate on this particular item, you vote in favor. If you wish to continue to debate the matter, you would vote against the motion. So we'll come to a vote on the motion to terminate debate. All those in favor of moving the question and terminating the debate signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted and declared unanimous. We will now come to a vote on item 5, $784,000, open space preservation, Damon Memorial Preserve. As to the quantum of vote, I've consulted with town council, and based on his advice, I am declaring that the quantum of vote for adoption of this motion is a majority. So, all those in favor of item number 5 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So voted and declared a 2/3 majority. Any 7 people who wish to challenge my declaration may do so now by standing. I do not see 7 people standing, so we will move on to the next item, which is number 6, $79,000 preservation of Bailey Ellis House. Seeing no one standing at the mic, I'll accept a motion to approve number 6. It's been moved and seconded, moved by Mr. Danahy, seconded by Mr. Harris. All those in favor of item number 6, $79,000 historic resources preservation at Bailey Ellis House signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So voted and declared unanimous. Item 9, which was held, $375,000, creation of Tilden multi-use trail. All right, let me start by asking who put the hold on. All right, I think I'll let the gentleman who put the hold on speak first. So the batting order will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So,
thank you, Mr. Moderator. William Ludlow, 241 Country Way. I did ask for a hold. I was looking for an explanation of what a multi-use trail is. And I have a little bit of interest in this because I do live on Country Way, and there was a proposal for a multi-use trail on Country Way that could affect my property as well, in the interest of transparency. Thank you.
And very properly put. Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So a multi-use trail is just what it sounds like. It's for pedestrians, it's for bicycles, it's for people pushing strollers. It tends to meander, and in this case we have, Scituate has now a plan called the Grand Loop, and what it is connections of different multi-use trails and sidewalks and other types of non-motorized vehicle transit options, if you will, that loops all around town. It connects the business districts with recreational sites and historic sites, as well as connects residential areas with public schools. The reason for this is, number one, to try to keep some of the cars off the road. Number two, to create safe pedestrian and bicycle passageways for people who don't want to be driving their cars from one destination to another. And also to allow our kids to be walking safely to school from their residential areas to our 4 elementary schools, the Gate School, as well as the high school. So the original plan for the Grand Loop is one that circumnavigates the whole town. We've made quite a bit of progress now connecting those, and you can see the Grand Loop Trail and its connecting trails on one of our CPC projects that was voted 2 years ago. It's called the Historic Trail website, and that'll be going live this spring, and hopefully that will it will inform folks like Mr. Ludlow and other people about the multi-use trails, where they go, what they connect to, and how they serve the town.
Gentleman to my left.
Tim Martell, 155 Tilden Road.
Sir.
My first question is, if there's no plan to look at, east side, west side, north side, south side, how can you come up with a figure of $375,000 for this noble idea, and what happens if that is not enough money? My other point is that we're talking, according to the commentary that you put in the Mariner, about using taxpayer money to improve private land. And my other question is, for those of us who may not be interested in that gift from the taxpayers, is it appropriate to use community preservation money for eminent domain?
Okay, so Mr. Moderator, if you don't mind, I'll ask Kevin from the DPW to talk about how the 375,000 figure was derived. It's a very detailed budget based on past experience with multi-use trails, of which the DPW has managed now at least 3. And to your point, yes, it's very difficult right now to be able to envision exactly where it is. Tilden is a very old road. As such, the boundaries and the rights of ways have kind of oozed every time the road gets paved and people's property are changed. So embedded in this cost are the design and engineering costs, which then surveys are taken and recommendations are made based on the width of the road in the different areas and the different obstacles that are in the way. We've looked at this road in order to make some sort of safe pedestrian passage on it now for over 15 years, and it's a very, very, as you know, difficult road to do that with. It's an old road. There are beautiful old trees and stone walls and other types of sites that you wouldn't want to disturb. So we've never really had the courage to tackle it before. This group of neighbors got together with small children who live just, a short walk from their homes to the Wampatuck School, but they're unable to walk to school based on how dangerous that road is right now. So they got together and they decided to tackle that problem. And in doing so, they have had conversations with, to date, there were 38 residents on the road that they spoke with who supported this idea of a meandering multi-use trail to the point where many of them are even allowing its passage to come up onto their property in order to protect trees and stone walls and other types of sites. That's never been done before, so we found that to be a very compelling argument to actually start this project. That with the recommendation of the DPW with regard to what they felt they could do. And it had the support of not only the DPW, it had the support of the Planning Board and the Recreation Department. And I believe the school actually piped in on it as well, always looking for safe passageway for students, young kids, to get to the Wampatuck School, to get to all of our elementary schools. And you probably know too that there are many more developments going in on Tilden and around Tilden that will now, you know, the potential for more families and more young children on that road gets higher and higher. So to your point, yes, it's a very important project, and we feel in community preservation that it's a very important use of those funds. With regard to taking of land, as yet we've not had to do that. On the Country Way piece.
Well, I'm just going to interrupt on the taking of land. This doesn't authorize taking of land, so that's not on the agenda.
Correct.
I'm sorry?
I said this article does not authorize acquisition of land by eminent domain, so that's not before us. And on the cost, the director, I think, was going to speak as to how the estimate was developed.
Kevin Cafferty, representing the DPW. The actual estimate was put together by Al Bangert before I came on, and he had worked with the residents on how they were envisioning the path. Typically what we'd do is we would do a survey first and break down how we would fit it into the roadway and see where it falls on the property lines. Thanks.
Did you have any other questions, sir?
No.
Okay. Lady at the center mic.
My name is Jacqueline Carr. I live at 147 Tilden Road. I worked with Al Bangert on creating the budget for this project that we proposed to the CPC. So to the question about where the budget numbers came from, they were actual numbers that were utilized in recent trails that were developed in town. And what was done was the consideration was made for a 6 to 8 foot wide trail with granite curbs. If you're familiar with Tilden Road, that's probably not going to be completely feasible across the section that we're talking about. So the guess and hope is that the cost would actually be lower on this, since it's not going to be, you know, there's no room really for that. To another point, this is not, we're not looking to necessarily, we're not looking to take land, we're looking to build this in the public access way, except for the places where we have residents who have said that they would be welcoming to having the trail on their property behind the trees so as to preserve the scenic nature of Tilden Road. And I just wanted to also speak to the fact that there was some question about how much the residents were going to be aware or are aware of the impact to their homes that are on this section of Tilden Road. And part of the budget that we've submitted includes a cost for an engineer to come and do a complete survey of the land and find out where the public access is. And then a 30% design would be developed and then presented to the Board of Selectmen and also to the Planning Board. At this time, any resident who lives on Tilden Road who would be affected by this would also be invited for comment to the plan. And then after that period is taken into consideration, there will be, you know, public hearings on trees or anything that might be affected, and a 90% design would be then put forth to the Board of Selectmen for additional approvals. So it's not, I just wanted to be clear that this isn't something where it's just one and done. There's still a lot of work that would have to be done on this, and people affected would still have an opportunity to comment.
I could. There we go. Gentleman at the center mic has disappeared. Okay. Gentleman to my right.
He's over here now. Steve B. Orkland again, 15 Captain Daniel Litchfield Lane. Some of you may know that I actually helped develop the Sam Tilden Farm subdivision over there, which is just off of on Tilden Road. And we actually put in a small piece of sidewalk between there, down near Rainbow Court. And I think before the pavement actually hardened, the kids in the area were already using it. We couldn't run it all the way from Sam Tilden Farm because we didn't own the properties. And there was a couple of pinch points in the road on the east side where there was some stone walls in the way. And I have since acquired 2 other parcels of land on the east side of Tilden Road, and I'll be glad to give the town an easement free of charge if they'll put a sidewalk in there, and a trail, whatever you want to call it, sidewalk trail, bike trail. And if a tree has to come down or a stone wall has to move and the kids are going to be safe, move the tree and move the stone wall.
Lady at the center mic.
Hi, I'm Allison Daraskovich, and I live at 30 Avis Lane. I wanted to clarify a little bit the multi-use trail. I know it does sound like another word for a sidewalk, but I just wanted to reference a past project that goes along the Driftway where it is a path. When it was first put in, I wondered exactly where the funding was coming from and how useful it would be. As it really became solidified, I realized that the funding came from CPC, and it's a tremendously successful pathway. It connects people from the West End at the Rotary all the way back to the harbor. I probably should be walking it more, but I drive past it a lot, and it is used tremendously by people who are on training wheels, people who are in wheelchairs. It's a major connector, which is part of this grand loop. This short stretch of Tilden is just part of building upon that, where I see neighborhoods that are much further down Tilden, even towards Egypt Beach, having that connection back to the harbor, having people from the harbor having the connection to Egypt Beach. I just feel like if it was built, it would be as successful as the path on the Driftway. Thank you.
Lady to my left.
Beverly Westerveld, 12 Harborview Road. I am for sidewalks, multi-use trails, whatever you want to call them, but I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Upkeep. How much does the town pay per mile of sidewalk or multi-use trail for upkeep over the years? Is it known? Is it known how much, if the town has a liability to keep it ice-free, snow-free? What are those, what does it cost the town to have trails?
Chairman Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, and thank you for your phone call about this question. After your phone call, I did want to make sure that I was informed appropriately, and I did have a conversation with our Director of DPW about the multi-use trails and if there is a finite cost to that. And the response from both Kevin and Al were, we simply, add it to our list of sidewalks that we plow in the winter, and they do it in a priority based on, its priority use with schools in the morning, and then they move on. So it's a very negligible addition with regard to plowing. And they did state that these multi-use trails have about a 20-year life when they start to crumble a little bit, and will need maintenance, and at that time, hopefully CPC will be there still and will be able to restore them.
So the CPC would be liable, if you want to say, for the maintenance that over the years, keeping it walkable, lawnable?
We're not liable for it, but if somebody came to us and said we need funding to help, restore it, then we would absolutely be there to support that with funds.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Lady at the center mic.
Laurie Withrow, 62 Ann Vinyl Road. I do believe I am for this trail. I live very close to this on Ann Vinyl Road in front of Hatherley School, which is not too far between Hatherley and Wampatuck. And we cannot safely get from Hatherley to Wampatuck because there's a very dangerous curve for anyone on bicycles and walking, running. And I just hope that the town can think about how we can connect our current sidewalks to new sidewalks, like you've talked about. I know this can't fall under CPC because they have to be multi-use trails, but I just hope that the sidewalks that we have get maintained better and that we can find a way to connect. If we just connect a little bit more on Tilden Road, you can go all the way to North Scituate, to the new path on Gannett Road. It's not that much to make this whole area safer and connect a lot of the town.
Lady to my right.
Nancy Murray Young, 161 Captain Pierce Road. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to move the question, please.
Motion to move the question is a motion to terminate debate. It is not debatable. It requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of terminating debate signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, so voted and declared overwhelmingly unanimous. We now come to a vote on the question of $375,000 for recreational use creation of Tilden multi-use trail. Approval of this item requires a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted and declared a majority vote.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Moderator, I move
Go ahead, Mr. Danny.
I'm sorry. I move the town rescind the balance of funds authorized but unexpended from prior community preservation projects, totaling $141,626.98, and transfer said fund into the Community Preservation Committee Reserve Fund balance, open space acquisition from which they were originally appropriated, as the case may be, in accordance with the Community Preservation Act as follows. Higgins McAllister property, the amount of $141,626.98. The annual town meeting date of 2012, Article 16.5.
It's been moved, seconded by Mr. Vignani. Discussion.
This is a in-house kind of like keeping for monies that were actually appropriated from the annual town meeting of 2012. This is the residual that was not expended, so now what we're looking to do is to take that amount of money and bring it back to the CPA.
From the Advisory Board, Mr. Sandin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As Mr. Danahy mentioned, this article came before us a couple years ago. We voted to approve the purchase of the undeveloped land. This is amounts left over from that. Just a clarification on your booklets, it says the amounts going back into the CPC general fund balance. Actually, it's going into the CPC's open space reserve account, which is part of the whole account. So just to be specific where that's going back. The advisory committee recommended approval of the article, unanimous, 7-0. Thank you.
Discussion, there being no one at the mic. So what's this? Discussion, there being no one at the mics. Approval of this motion requires majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, so voted and declared unanimous. Article 15 on the motion, Mr. Vignani.
I move that the town assume liability in the manner provided by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 91, Section 29, as amended, for all damages that may be incurred by work to be performed by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection for the improvement, development, maintenance, and protection of tidal and non-tidal rivers, streams, great ponds, harbors, tidewaters, foreshores, and shores along public beach in accordance with Section 11 of said Chapter 91, and to authorize the selectmen to execute and deliver a bond on indemnity therefore to the Commonwealth.
To move, seconded by Selectman Murray. Discussion, Mr. Vignani.
This is an annual article that comes up. It's pretty straightforward, what I read. The town has to indemnify and assume liability for any work that the DEP does on town waterways, like dredging or working on our beaches and that sort of stuff. Selectmen voted unanimously in support of this motion.
From the Advisory Board, Ms. Karen Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Advisory Committee voted unanimously in support of this article and recommends approval of the motion.
Discussion, there being no one at the mics, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, so voted and declared unanimous. Article 16 on the motion, Selectman Murray.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator. Pete Toppin, 26 Clapp Road. I'd like to propose a motion that we suspend the rules and we continue after 11 o'clock.
Been moved, seconded, discussion, motion to suspend the rules, go past 11 o'clock. I will just say two things. One, we can do this. We can get this done. But if someone has the idea that they want to come back for a second night, you might want to be aware of section 20,140, which says that we must come back on the succeeding Mondays and Wednesdays to continue this meeting. So this section wasn't changed when we changed our bylaws, moving it from a Saturday town meeting to where we are now. It made sense to pick it up on Monday and Wednesday when you met on Saturday. It makes no sense when you meet on a Monday to have to wait another week, especially for those of you who are going to be celebrating school vacation week. So with that editorial in place, the motion to suspend the rules has been offered. Second, there being no one at the mics. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. So voted and declared, almost a unanimous vote. Selectman Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, I move the town transfer from retained earnings in the Waterways Enterprise Fund the sum of $70,231 for the purpose of paying increased costs for a rehabilitation of the town pier, contingent upon such funds being used as part of the town's share of a grant received from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Seaport Advisory Council.
Selectman by, I'm tired. Second by Selectman Vignani. Discussion, Selectman Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This warrant article will complete the rehabilitation of the town commercial fishing pier. Money requested is going to come from the Waterways Enterprise Fund, we discussed earlier, and only represents the town's share of the cost because the state, through the Seaport Advisory Council, will also be contributing the lion's share of the total cost of the project, something on the order of 80%. This request represents additional funds because the engineering study that came in as part of the initial phase of the project revealed more work needed to be done than was anticipated, and the bids came in higher than anticipated as well. But the state, through the Seaport Advisory Council, is going to be contributing their share to this additional request as well. The project is going to be ongoing this summer and should be wrapped up and finished in July, and the selectmen voted unanimously in favor of this article.
From the Advisory Board, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As Selectman Murray mentioned, this is a project that the town has supported in the past. There have been some incremental increases now that the project has been bid and we know what it's going to cost to actually do the work. The Advisory Committee voted in support of the article and recommends approval of the motion.
Discussion. There being no one at the mics, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, so voted and declared unanimous. Article 17, on the motion, Selectman O'Toole.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen on such terms as it deems in the best interest of the town and for consideration of at least $7,500 to grant an easement to the owners of Lighthouse View Condominiums, 71 to 73 Glades Road, and their successors for perpetual non-exclusive rights and easement to pass and repass by vehicular traffic or otherwise with the land described and on file with the Department of Public Works for the purpose of accessing property through the Minot Light Beach parking lot on Bailey's Causeway.
Seconded, Mr. Harris. Discussion, Selectman O'Toole.
This article grants an easement to the residences located on Glades Road. The driveway to the building opens to the Minot Beach parking area, and a portion encroaches on town-owned property. This will document and correct the encroachment as there is no other egress in exchange for $7,500 payment to the town.
From the Advisory Board, Mr. Judge.
As was mentioned, this is the only residences access to the property, so for the exchange of $2,500, it seemed like a reasonable amount of money to be spent to give them their easement. The Advisory Committee approved this motion unanimously.
Discussion from the floor. Seeing no one at the microphones, approval of this motion requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted and declared unanimous. Article 18 on the motion, Selectman Murray.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to accept Walnut Hill Drive, Garrison Drive, Woolworth Lane, Bridle Lane, and Greenbrier Way as laid out by the Board of Selectmen as public ways.
The move seconded by Chairman Harris. Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This warrant article hopefully brings to conclusion a long saga that has resulted in a lot of work being done by the residents of those streets, as well as by Al Bangert and Kevin Cafferty of DPW and the Street Acceptance Committee, the Planning Board, Tricia Vincasey is the Town Administrator, the Selectmen, and others. I say long saga because it has been, and so here's the short version. The developer who built this area, Modern Continental, went bankrupt soon after the development was completed. The Planning Board and the town fortunately had in place a $2.6 million bond to cover inadequate construction. Yet, for a variety of reasons, despite the residents initiating this process over a decade ago, in 2003, and the town starting on the bond issue in about 2008, it was only very recently that the bond was resolved and most of the construction requirements were fulfilled. Consultant had to be hired. There are all sorts of legal issues we had to fight through with the bonding agency and the bonding insurance company and so on. Because it took so long, both legally and bureaucratically, it took a Herculean amount of work by everyone involved, the residents, the town, all the various committees, to get us to this point in time, whereby a positive vote by town meeting tonight will finally get these roads accepted. The Selectmen voted 4-1 in favor of this article.
From the Advisory Board, Mr. Sandin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I can't remember how many of these articles with street acceptance have come up before the town and the Street Acceptance Committee. I'm going to venture we've probably had the better part of 7 or 8 of them over the past few years since we adopted the street acceptance process back in 2008 or so. There's never been one that's probably generated more debate and discussion than the one we have before us right now. It's a little history. The process that was put in 2008 with the Street Acceptance Committee is comprised of a couple members of DPW, Planning, Board of Selectmen, and the Advisory Council. I myself have been a member of the Street Acceptance Group for the past 4 years. We've heard, like I said, many articles before the Acceptance Committee, Pineview Drive, Pineview Circle, Blossom Street, Hickory Lane, Persimmon Drive, Beech Tree Farm Road, Ava and Laura's Lane, and Cornerstone Drive. Those that went through the process and complied with the process that was laid out before them were assessed a betterment. And in the case of a couple, there wasn't a betterment assigned because of the condition of the road. And then there were other roads that came up before the street acceptance, which the residents of the road decided not to pursue street acceptance. Point is that the process that was laid out is very strict, very detailed, and everyone's complied with that. Now we have circumstances here which are, that Mr. Murray mentioned, that are a little bit unusual. However, there's a concern here that making a significant change by adopting the motion as is, by not following the procedures and the process of street acceptance with assessing of a betterment, and just accepting the motion as is, we're accepting these streets, is going to lead to potentially some, I feel, and as do many members of the advisory committee, some future problems here for, well, the streets that have already accepted and the folks of those residents who are already being assessed betterments and have gone through this process. They are being assessed those betterments for the better part of 20 years. They went through the process and they understood. Also, how are we going to address the next one that comes up before street acceptance? Now, it may not have the same circumstances that were just mentioned here with the developer going bankrupt and the bond, etc. But this is an exception to the process that we've been following for some time, and it's going to, I believe, create some concerns and problems with the ones that we've already done and the ones that will come before us. That's kind of it. This is not easy. All members here on the advisory committee, when you got your report, this thing was still being debated and discussed, and as you can see here in advisory reports, we were still up in air. The advisory committee has heard all sides and voted before this meeting to not accept the motion before you tonight and not recommend approval of the motion. It was voted down unanimously, a 0-7 vote. Thank you.
I'll get you in there. Lady to my left.
Sarah Trees Eyes, 32 Sherman Drive. I live on a private way. My street went through the same process. There's about 12 people on our street. About 50% of the people who own property have lived there for as long as the street has been there, some 40 years. A couple of the people have sold the property to their children. We got a bill from the town, if you call it, or an assessment, perhaps it was more appropriate, that we, in order to be a public street, a public way, would have to pay around $5,000, each of us. For the privilege of living on a public way, we have been told that we had to bring our street up to state standards. The average value of the properties on my street are about half of the value of the streets that are affected by this motion. There are about 57 properties. The total value of the properties based on the town assessor's records is $45 million. The average home affected by this motion is approximately $800,000. And if they are allowed to bring their street to be accepted as a public way without meeting the betterment, when time comes for repairs on that road, all of us, each one of us, is going to be paying that bill. And I'm going to be paying that bill, and along with the betterment, if I and my neighbors, because you have to, unanimous, I think it's 75% have to agree to upgrade the street, we're going to have to pay our bill, and we're going to have to pay their bill. I'm offended by the favoritism that this shows. These are not property owners that are living in really destitute areas of town where the streets are terrible, but the property owners cannot afford to bring this up to code. I urge all of you not to allow this motion to go forward. These are properties that there is no reason for them to get a free pass, and it's a pass on all of you that you're going to be paying for the upgrade of this street. It's unfair. And I applaud the advisory board for turning it down. And I'd really like to hear, I don't know what the vote was with the selectmen, but you said it was 4-1. I'd like to know who voted against it and what their rationale was. And thank you.
Gentleman at the center mic.
Mark Bissell, 28 Captain Litchfield Lane. I just wanted to say to the advisory board, thank you for building the process. I was involved in that. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I appreciate that you spent the time and energy to build the process, to protect the town. And I support your analysis and your research, and encourage all of us to do the same. When people spend this much time digging into it, getting into particulars, I think we need to respect their opinions and follow along with that. So thank you for that, and I will vote no.
Gentleman to my left.
Yes, sir. Bob McDermott from 73 Woodworth Lane. I guess I would begin by saying in 2003, I was in Laura Harbottle's office as a member of this neighborhood to start the process. And many people in the town have been great partners as we've battled through what has been a really convoluted very challenging environment dealing with Modern Continental going belly up. Thank God that there was a $2.6 million bond there that our town made Modern Continental put up money for, which we've drawn. I don't know the number. How much money did we draw off that? $800,000 already to do work to the neighborhood. So it's, and I certainly don't think that this has been a situation where there's been favoritism played. I think that we've been challenged appropriately at the right times as we've gone through this process.